Good evening from the Channel's newsroom here in London. Activists claim Sudan's security forces have attacked a pro-democracy protest outside the military headquarters. Medical sources say at least 9 people have been killed, with reports of live ammunition being used in Khartoum. It comes after weeks of protests, with campaigners demanding that a civilian government take over the running of the country. They got in line with shields and body armour, then they charged. Security forces entering the site of a sit-in in central Khartoum. For protesters, it's a terrifying moment. Amid shots and gunfire, dozens of people were injured. It's not yet known exactly how many were killed. Activists claim this was an attempt to disperse protesters demanding civilian rule. After the night of violence, they continued their resistance against the military, setting up burning barricades in the capital.
We as Sudanese hold the security forces accountable based on eyewitnesses for the dispersal of the sit-in. The security forces have betrayed the Sudanese people. People have died, others were injured.
The violence comes amid deadlock between protesters and Sudan's military rulers over demands to hand over power to civilians. Demonstrations have been ongoing for weeks, with people occupying the streets outside the Defense Ministry. The Transitional Military Council seized power in April, ousting President Omar al-Bashir. Demonstrators want civilians to run the transitional period, not the military. The ruling military council said it had been targeting what it considers to be a problematic area near the sit-in. But a resolution doesn't look close. And as talks go on, it's likely scenes like these will continue, and with them a death toll that's continuing to rise. A helicopter searching for 8 climbers who went missing in the Indian Himalayas have spotted 5 bodies, a military source says. 4 Britons, 2 Americans, an Australian and an Indian made up the missing group, who disappeared on India's 2nd highest peak. They were seen just before a rescue operation was suspended due to heavy snowfall and high winds. The group was attempting to reach the summit of the Nanda Devi in Uttarakhand when it's thought the peak was hit by multiple avalanches. South Korean rescue divers have performed test dives in the Danube River in Budapest as they prepare to reach the wreckage of a pleasure boat which sank last week. The Mermaid, which was carrying a group of South Koreans, capsized when it was hit by a larger boat on Wednesday. 7 bodies recovered on the night of the disaster, while a further 21 people, 19 Koreans and 2 Hungarians, are missing and presumed dead. The Queen has welcomed the US President to Buckingham Palace on the first day of his 3-day state visit. The traditional double-gun salute in nearby Green Park marked the moment of his arrival. Mr. Trump and First Lady Melania Trump travelled through the capital by helicopter and were met by Prince Charles and the Duchess of Cornwall before being greeted by the Queen at Buckingham Palace. The President then inspected the honour guard with the Queen before both countries' national anthems were played. They were joined by Prince Harry for lunch, with the Trump family also in attendance at the palace. As is customary, there will be a state banquet on the first night of the trip. Mr. Trump is later expected to discuss climate change and the Chinese technology firm Huawei during talks with outgoing Prime Minister Theresa May. Day one hasn't been without controversy, though. Mr. Trump tweeted London's Mayor Sadiq Khan, calling him a stone-cold loser who should focus on crime in London, not me. A senior North Korean official who was reportedly purged from Kim Jong-un's top negotiating team has been seen in public with the leader. Kim Yong-chol, seen here clapping at a concert on the far right, has been his right-hand man since the country entered talks with the United States last year, but had barely been seen since talks collapsed. A South Korean newspaper claimed he had been sent to a Labour re-education camp. However, his appearance with the North Korean leader at a concert suggests he remains a force in the power structure. And finally, a new and competitive type of child's play, as 25 toddlers have taken part in Lithuania's annual baby racing contest. Aged between 7 months and a year, the babies competed in heats along a 5-metre carpeted track, parents encouraging them at the finish line by holding up some of their favourite items. Some were quick off the mark, while others became somewhat distracted during the race. The event has become something of a spectator sport since it was first staged in the capital Vilnius 20 20 years ago. The race was eventually won by Ignas Dovydaitis, who will be 12 months old in 2 weeks' time. And that's your international news around the world in 5.